Yeah, it was funny. The project that I can't name, we were doing rounds, and it's like right in the middle of rounds, my phone goes off with, tornado warning. And so it's like my kids came down, my wife came down, I grabbed my laptop and a charger and went over to our little bunker room. I'm sitting there on, a plastic tote because my wife took one of the chairs that we have in there. My son took the other chair, and my daughter was sitting on the floor. So I'm like stuck sitting on a tote, and I'm not kidding. I was sitting like this because of how high the tabletop is in there, doing rounds for 2 hours because of this tornado warning that was going on. And it allowed you to segment out the character, skin up those segments, and then drive the main mesh with each one of those segments. And they only influenced what covered it. So like if I have a character, I could cut out the eye, do all my rigging for the eyelid around it, and then control point glue that back onto the geometry, and it's only influencing that area.
Welcome to the show, you guys. I have with me Todd Widup. He's a rigging supervisor at Sony Pictures Imageworks. Todd has a long, amazing career in CG animation, VFX. I think he's probably worked on every high-profile project that I could imagine.
No, not everyone, that's for sure.
Almost. There's probably like one or two that I would say that the majority are worked on, and there might be a few outliers that he didn't work on. But yeah, he's got a ton of amazing experience. He's a good friend and fellow meathead in the gym, and yeah, just an all-around awesome guy.
Slowly getting back into that part.
Super stoked to have him on the show. So thanks for coming on, man.
Dude, I'm happy to be here, man. It's great to see you again. So.
Yeah, it's nuts. So, how long have you been at Sony now?
This is actually my 3-year anniversary. This trip at Sony. I was here, 2009 through 2011, and then came back in 2021 this month, and coming up on 3 years now.
That's crazy. What are you guys working on?
God, I'm trying to remember what I can and can't say on this one now. I am actually currently on GOAT. It's a feature animated film from Sony Pictures Animation. I'm trying to actually remember what I can say on this one because I don't honestly remember. Prior to that, I've been on, rigging souped Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I was on Red 1 for quite a while. It's an Amazon Christmas movie with The Rock that comes out in November.
Okay.
Prior to that, my first 2 projects when I got to Sony, I was actually running both these simultaneously, was The Marvels and Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Badass, dude. What's the rigging process like at Sony these days? Is it deformers and pipeline, or are you guys doing anything a little bit different? Or
currently, yeah, it's still, deformers, automated system. Everything's basically how it has been, just new tech for it. We're evaluating a bunch of new stuff and seeing how it works and how we can roll it in.
So what kind of deformers are like your, let's say your average hero character, maybe like on a VFX project? I know they're all probably super different, but
yeah.
Can you describe what's going on under the hood for some of those characters, like body, face?
Our base system is a proprietary tool called WireSkin. It's like a skin cluster, it just handles it differently. Lets us work, honestly, a little bit faster. So every character has a base wire skin of some sort, whether it's on the main mesh or on a proxy mesh that we're then proximity wrapping to the high. Beyond that, 9 times out of 10, it's just like an additional wire skin on like props, accessories, stuff like that. We have some proprietary tools as well called like control point glue, like locking down hard surface objects.
Is it like a rivet type? Something like
it's kind of like that, but
a button or.
We have rivet tools, obviously. We use UV pin and stuff like that way more than those nowadays. But control point glue does. I'm trying to think of a way to describe this that will make sense. The easiest thing I can think of is, and this is going to date me so bad, like back in the day on Lightwave, there was a plugin called Puppet Master. And it allowed you to segment out the character, skin up those segments, and then drive the main mesh with each one of those segments. And they only influenced what covered it. So like if I have a character, I could cut out the eye, do all my rigging for the eyelid around it, and then control point glue that back onto the geometry, and it's only influencing that area. So it's a nice way where we can layer multiple deformers into a character.
That's actually really cool. That's crazy that Lightwave had that back. How long was that ago?
God,
20 years ago?
25. It was on 25, 26 years ago was when they had that one in there.
It sounds like a pretty sweet way to work. It's actually pretty cool.
You're going to laugh. I actually did a character for Autodesk recently, and I actually used that entire approach for the whole character because I'm like, it allowed me to cut out the arms and work with them independent from the torso, not stress on skinning overlaps from the arms onto the torso, stuff like that. I was using a bunch of other tools for it with them, and it made it super easy to get everything back onto the main body and work with it. So
that's crazy. So what's the tool again called? It's
at Sony. It's control point glue. The Maya equivalent is actually what I was doing was proximity wraps.
Okay.
Because I found out I don't play with proximity wraps that often, but I started playing with them more and more recently, and you can actually put multiple meshes as your driver mesh to control the output mesh. And that's all I did was just like cut my character up. So it's like the head, neck. I'm actually looking at them right here. The head, neck, the arms, the torso, and then the legs were all separate pieces.
Uh-huh.
And I had gapping between it because they have a smoothing system built into it. So it'll actually smooth between the geometry that's not covered.
Oh, that's pretty killer. Are all those sections kind of run in parallel, or is there like a hierarchy to them?
No, it's literally all 5 fed into the one node, and that feeds into the character itself.
That sounds crazy. So, like, back to your pipeline at Sony, is there anything for like, corrective shapes or like little secondary controls and things like that? Muscle type
all
stuff or jiggle?
Both of them. So secondary systems are however we want to set it up. It's pretty much up to the artist. On VFX, on feature anim, we have a bit more locked down where we have templates that we're following, and then we do whatever's needed for the character on top of that. As far as corrective shapes, it's built into our wire skin system.
Okay.
So it functions directly right on top of it. It's all internal into one node, so it's super fast and honestly really easy to work with at that point.
So so the curve deformation is driving the correctives, or how is it reading? Joint angles?
It still reads bone data. It's still taking bone data or transform data as an input for defining rotations.
Is there any...
Ghostbusters was a crazy show, I'll tell you that. So
I haven't gotten a chance to see it yet, so I don't know like all the different creatures and stuff that were in it. But it started off, we were the primary vendor or the only vendor on it. And I think we ended up bringing in 2 or 3 other small studios to help out with various sequences, just because we had so much work in the end. So yeah, we did Garaka, which is the main bad guy, all the mini puffs, which that was fun to work on. The sewer dragon, which is this big dragon that busts out of the sewer and flies over New York. The trash bag ghost, lots of little ghosts throughout. Like there's this possessor ghost that like possesses various things throughout the whole film. And it's a trash bag. It's a CD player, like an old Discman. A paper airplane at one point because I had to rig that paper airplane. And it's a gag shot because it's like it flies out of the file cabinet, folds, it's just a regular sheet of paper, then folds itself into a paper airplane and then flies off. Was that Yeah, how'd you go about that?
Slow, steady. It was a very structured, layered rig where one model fed to the next model, which fed to the next model, which fed to the final model. And it was like this one would blend shape, and that would set up the blend shape on this, which was piping out the out mesh to the in mesh. And then the skin cluster would take over on this one so they could do a little bit. That would then blend shape into this next one. That would feed the out mesh to the in mesh, and so on. And it was just like, oh, God, I can't believe I did the rig this way, but it worked for folding it. And I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, that's one of those things when I first hear you mention it, like, oh, paper airplane, like maybe he did that like in a couple of days, but it sounds like it was probably a little bit more of a project.
No, it was actually about 5-6 days, I think I spent on it, but it was just like, I knew it was coming up. So I had been thinking for quite a while, it's like, how am I going to deal with, because I knew it had to fold. And I had blend shapes for what the fold shape needed to look like exactly.
Right.
So it's like I could go that way, but it's like I still needed to have, the piece of paper fold up like that and have it look good where it's not like creating crap geometry on the edges. And I had thought about it enough to where I got a couple good ideas testing it out and was able to put it in pretty quickly. The one that was honestly more difficult was the trash bag, because the trash bag is originally in a trash can and overfolds the edge, so you have to have that come up,
right,
tie itself in a knot, and then it runs off.
Oh, geez.
And yep, exactly. And that was 2 rigs, actually. We had the one that was in the trash can.
Right.
And we had to do this crazy system. One of my artists did this, and we went back and forth for like, God, I think a week and a half or so, trying to get a good system in place for the edges so that when they rolled up, it didn't penetrate through stuff, and it actually looked like it was unrolling and everything around the trash can.
Did they give you the model like neutral, or was it posed?
Yeah, it was modeled straight up, so the handles were coming off the top. It was not modeled overlapped. So
okay,
we had to actually build the rig to do that.
Right.
We did kick that back to modeling once it was ready and go, hey, we want a clean shape for this, so we could apply that as a corrective real quick.
That's cool. Yeah. It's nuts how like you're working on like something like Ghostbusters, and like some like the most interesting, like memorable things that you rigged or worked on it was like the paper airplane and a trash bag.
It's stuff like that always cracks me up, because I'm like, you can fully get, a hero digi-double like Carol Danvers from the Marvels, or, Quill, or any of the Guardians. And then you get these random weird things like that. Like, and it presents challenges. There was a environment on Guardians. It's on the orgoscope. The internal name was the floating meatball, because it looks like a giant chunk of meat. All the Guardians are inside this security decompression room, and there's this sentry eye above it. And I had to rig the eye to look around. And this eye it's like something you would have expected to see out of Hellraiser.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's got like these things that are pulling the eyelid open. And yeah, it was just like, oh, this is so disgusting, guys. But it had all these like shocks and pistons too. So as the eye looks around, the eyelid had to respond to it. All these pistons had to move and respond to it. All the little clamps that were holding it back had to respond. So, and all animation had to do was actually just move the eye.
That's cool. So you set all that stuff up, all the secondary stuff to kind of be automatic, or that's really cool.
Yeah, set it all up. That was, I think I actually spent about a week on that.
So when you have something crazy one-off like that, are you going through and setting up a build and you're building your rig build system, or are you just going into Maya and just hacking some stuff together?
No, it's everything for our system is done, or everything we rig at Sony is done through the rig build. Just because if there's a model update, we can just run the scripts and rebuild it right away. Mm-hmm. The only time it takes longer than, I've seen rigs that take 3 hours to build, but normally it's like 20, 30 minutes at the most. The only time we have to do more work than just hitting the button with those model changes is when like the topology changes a lot. There's new vert order, stuff like that. And then it's just like load up the old one, load in the new one, transfer the weights over, transfer the shapes over.
Yeah, I'm guessing on those builds, the time, all of, like the stuff that takes the longest is probably loading all the deformers, all that kind of stuff, right? It's probably what. No,
actually, it's loading geometry takes time. Shader setups take time. Our deformer system works really fast. So it's just applying weights and settings to it. So those are really quick. Copying a deformer from one mesh to another mesh takes time.
Do you guys do that in builds? You'll have a deformer on one mesh and you'll copy the weights or all the stuff over.
Yeah, we have a transfer tool set up to where we can select the body mesh in like a shirt and transfer from the body mesh directly to the shirt.
That's cool.
So we don't have to actually go in and skin the shirt every time, especially if we know we're going to be sending that to Character Effects and let Cloth Sim run on it. Mm-hmm. We'll usually just do that so we have a rough skin on it. Sometimes if they are wanting to use that as do shots without sim, we will do more work obviously on it to make it so it looks and holds up for most shots. But yeah, some characters are a few minutes. Some characters take, like I said, 3 hours.
Yeah,
I know we did the rig, or we did the Bowie for Guardians. It's the big spaceship that the Guardians are flying with the rings, that huge, crazy thing. And I'm trying to remember, I don't remember what the final poly count was, but I had a guy dedicated to just doing that rig. And he had spent, I think he was focused on that for a solid 2 months. And then had probably about another 2 months worth of work on and off when various parts came in and stuff like that for it. And that was one of those rigs that took, I ran the build one time because I had to do an update once. And it took, I think 3.5, 4 hours.
That's probably the longest I've ever heard. Yeah, that's wild. Yeah. I think we've had some long builds. Like I remember like at Blizzard, might have been like 10, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes for a build. But then like, even if you forgot to turn something on or you're under like a deadline or whatever, like, okay, I'm going to get this thing out. I'm going to get this update done for you and get this character out. And then it's like, crap, I forgot to friggin', whatever setting or whatever it was that you were supposed to also change. Yeah.
Yeah. My first character job in the industry was back on Revenge of the Sith and at ILM, obviously. And when I was there, I think there was 25 character TDs in the company. Like they were still real. I don't want to say really small, but it was a lot smaller than it is now. But we did everything. Like we did rigging scripts, we did animation tools, obviously character rigging and setups, vehicles. We did cloth, hair, muscle sims, rigid body sims, and I remember I was working on a Yoda shot and the shot got cut from the film. To this day, it's like one of two shots that got cut. Well, yeah, two shots that got cut, sort of, that I was always so disappointed that it didn't make the final one. And it was a shot where Yoda is sitting on a crate talking to Mace and Obi-Wan. And the crate is in one of the troop carrier, the gunships. I can never remember the name of those. But it's flying by, it lands, and he jumps off the crate and starts walking off. And I think this is on the DVD as a behind the scenes blooper thing. But I forgot to turn on because the Yoda cloth setups were done for walking or sitting, not transitioning. So I forgot and ran the sim. I had set all my stuff up, ran the sim, forgot to turn one thing on. And I had started off with the sitting one because that's what he was doing. So he jumps off, his pants fall off. And I'm just like, oh God,
Classic,
one of those things like, I can't believe I forgot to turn that one setting back on. So
I'll have to try to find that. That's hilarious, dude. Yeah, but that's also like, it's funny to like look back at it now, but I'm sure in the moment you're like, oh shit. Like, yeah.
I didn't realize it until we showed it in rounds. That was the funny part. Because I had literally ran the thing, kicked off the render, and then went to rounds. So it's like, I'm in rounds while it finished. And it pops up and we watch it and everybody started laughing. And I'm just like, oh God, I can't believe I forgot that. So they're like, just turn it on and rerun it and it's done. I was like, okay.
Nice.
So
do you, are you guys running Simpson stuff in the rigging department at Sony, or is a different department?
No, we are strictly rigging only. We do, I can't say that even. We do character filing a bit and Ziva muscle. Well, we do muscle setups at times as well, but we're in a transition point because with Ziva and everything, we're not for sure which direction we're going with some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like Character Effects is doing some stuff, but they do primarily cloth and hair and everything. So, when we do stuff, it's muscles, but I don't know if that's going to be transitioning over to Character Effects or not down the road.
For the Ziva stuff, were you guys going like full-fledged, full body muscle bone setup, or was it more like per shot or kind of?
No, we did a full setup for the characters that we ran shots on, but it varied. Some characters we did more just like a fat volume type sim.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like setting up the volumes that simulate the fat effect of the characters to get some skins bouncing around and stuff like that. Garaka, because we did do full body sims on him, we did do a full muscle setup and everything inside of him for that. So that's why you get this nice like crazy deformation when he's like popping his horns on his head for his back muscles and everything.
That's awesome. Yeah. So like how anatomical would that stuff get? Was it more like representative muscles, or were you guys getting in?
No, it's purely representative. We do have a digi double rig, I think, that we use occasionally that is an anatomically correct setup for the musculature. Mm-hmm. But every character I've had to do or we've done characters on my shows, it's always been like, crap, this isn't like human in any way, shape, or form. So you take that base and then you're warping the muscles to fit and kind of get what you need. So. Yeah,
it's interesting. I found that like things get pretty hard to wrangle when you start to try to get all the muscle definition and detail in there. So then a lot of it gets lost anyway when you get through the final layer of the skin.
Yeah, as soon as you get the skin on it and then you throw fur on top of that, you can't tell half the time.
Yeah, you really see that stuff. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So I think Brad from Rigging Dojo mentioned that you're going to be teaching a ML deformer class. Does that sound right? Or is that? I hope I'm not.
No.
On the spot.
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot a bit, but not too much because I've got to get some stuff done up for that still.
Okay.
Yeah, Brad and I have been talking about that for, actually about 7 or 8 months. It started when it was going to be Ziva RT and the Epic Unreal ML system. Obviously, with Ziva RT not being around now, that's out. We're going to focus mainly on the Unreal ML system as well as Maya's new ML system that's in 2025.2.
Okay, I don't know anything about that. I don't know too much about the ML stuff in general, so I'm curious to kind of, have you been using it in production at all, or is this all
we haven't been using it in production. I played around with the Unreal one for just some testing for going into UE4 or UE5 on stuff. Mm-hmm. The Autodesk one, the character I mentioned that I had done for them was actually for the ML deformer.
Okay, so that layered proximity wrap stuff, that was all to bake into an ML.
Yeah, it was all baked down into it. The easiest way to think about the ML systems is effectively it's just a giant corrective shape. I mean, it's a smart PSD post-corrective system because it's reading your joint values and what the mesh was and approximating what type of deformation you should have at that point based on the data you've given it. So with Epic's system and how Ziva RT ran, you had a couple files you give it, and then you give it a geometry cache of what your like ideal deformation is, whether it's like they did with Captain America on this Sundance game, Avengers game that they're working on. They did like a full Houdini muscle sim on him with then cloth on top of that. And that's the actual data that they fed into the ML deformer.
Right.
With the appropriate ROM and everything. And so you get this like amazingly detailed character mesh that comes out inside of Unreal, where the worst deformation you get is whatever your base skinning is. But you're getting like, you know, if you had a satchel on the hip or something like that, you'd see that moving around and looking natural to the character as they're walking around all the time. So that's how Epic's works. Maya's is a bit different. You can do that type of stuff, but you can also just bake it down live in your scene. So, you know, if you have your skin cluster here and then wrap deformers or wire deformers or everything on top of it, it'll bake that down into one node above the skin cluster.
Oh, interesting.
And then you
just a skin and just one other deformer.
Yep. And then you can actually turn that on and off and blend between your original deformation and that to see how accurate it was. I was like, it's a pretty freaking cool way of doing it. Working with it more, you can do even more with it. Like you can actually paint blends to blend between the ML system and your actual deformer. So you can actually blend the two together. You can blend multiple ML deformers together too. So you could have 3 or 4 deformer stacks. Yeah.
That's crazy.
You can train very specific areas.
One of the things I was reading about the Epic ML deformer system, they have like a script for Maya that goes in and generates the random poses, kind of random, I guess, for like the training data. Are you do you use a system like that to like go through every FK control, let's say, and rotate it? Like what's the training process look like?
To me, the idea of doing random poses I don't like, because I'm like, when I'm dealing with that type of stuff, I ideally want to run it through the sims and everything afterwards, so I have that pure this is exactly what I expect to get. Not this is my rig and 99% of that's what we're getting, but this is the super clean, beautiful cloth deformation, all that type of stuff there, or all the great muscle and skin sliding and all that. I would normally not use random poses. I would go through and have a very specific ROM that I would use. So it's like rotating each joint through a nice natural range of motion, maybe going to a bit of the extremes on all of them. And just trying to hit like every major bone on there, like fingers and stuff like that. I'm always, how much do we do on detail for a character? Yeah. If I have a very close up of a hand, we put a lot of detail in that hand. If the hand is like that on screen and you never see that much of it, we're not going to put as much attention to that. And it's on my own personal stuff more than Sony. Sony, we just go all out on everything, feels like. So, but yeah, it's like, so I would hit like the shoulders, elbows, wrists, obviously good range of motion on the spine, head, neck, hips. Hips and shoulders are the two that, you know, I'm hitting a huge broad range of targets on that. Just so we can make sure all the deformation's looking good, and then bake that down into a nice and clean animation, get it cleaned up in like something like Mush 3D, and then bring that in to do the solve from.
Oh, that's cool. So you're actually going in and doing like some cleanup, sculpting, shot sculpting type workflow on your training data, and then throwing it into the...
Yeah, and then use that as the basis for, this is what our perfect clean data looks like.
That's pretty awesome. And then, so are you guys, or are you not taking into account gravity and stuff like that, if there is any kind of sim component, because it is an ML deformer like, are you leaving that out or turning that off, or how do you go about that?
I have not thought about that one that much, to be honest. That's a good one. With the cloth sims, I would run it with gravity on there just because you're going to be approximating normal range of motion.
Right.
And then animation can still animate on top of this. And the thing is, even once animation's done, you can actually kick this over to Character Effects then and still run a cloth sim on everything. You're just getting a better animation. Yeah, you can still get a nice, good, solid chunk of animation or a good, solid deformation for animation to be working from. And hey, maybe you don't have to run it through Character Effects and run a cloth sim on it. Or maybe if he is jumping out of a plane, you want that secondary Character Effects pass.
Cool. Do you think like the ML deformer stuff is like the biggest development in rigging and character deformation in a long time, or what do you think of all that?
I'm thinking here. Well, I think it's one of the bigger ones. It's definitely going to make things a little bit faster and easier to work with for us. But it creates more work for us, obviously, because you're making a perfect deformation set or a perfect deformed character for the quality that you're going with. But I don't know. I mean, it's definitely one of the top 2 or 3 things I think right now that I would be focusing on.
Yeah.
Other stuff that I'm allowed to mention is not Sony related. It's a piece of software called Ozone.
Oh, I saw Brad from Rigging Dojo's working with them, right?
Yeah. Brad's their, what's his position now? I think testing coordinator or testing manager or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. It's a small group. I'm trying to think how many people. I think there's about 20 people there now, actually. Started by a close friend of mine that I've known for 25 years, Rich Hurry. He's an ex-Rhythm and Hughes, ex-Pixar rigger. And it's him and mainly like Eric Solvay is their lead engineer on the project. He's, ex-Foundation, ex-Luxology, ex-Weta, ex-Blizzard, was he at ILM or not? I can't remember now. But it's taking I'm trying to think of how to describe this approach. It's a very unique approach to the rig building. It's not for...
while you're talking about that, I'm going to bring up the site and then so I can share.
Yeah, go for it. It's a unique approach. It's not like building the skeleton and building the IK chains. This is purely a deformation engine is what it is. So like crazy fast. It runs on Modo, Maya. I think they have a 3ds Max plugin either in partial development or in development. I know there's talk of Houdini. They do have a native Unreal plugin. So the cool thing is basically you build out your Ozone deformation system, and you have you basically have a text file or a file that you load up into the plugins. So in Maya, you load the plugin up, connect up how your joints are driving it. In Unreal, you have a skeleton on your FBX that you import. You apply the Modo or the Ozone node to it and apply the deformation file to that. And what you see in Maya is exactly what you're going to be getting in Unreal at that point. The other cool thing is in Unreal, you do actually have live sub-D surfaces. So you can dial up the resolution of your character inside of Unreal. And you can layer stuff. I mean, Rich has this amazing demo that he does with this talking like rubber ball that every time I see it, I laugh because,
Is this it?
Weight paint. Yeah. Like the crazy things he can do with that deformer setup on that for a mouth is like insane to me every time I see it.
So the way I understand it, it's kind of like, maybe I should have Brad or some of these guys on to talk about it, but it's almost like a bunch of layered like nonlinear deformers. Like if I'm just basically thinking about it from things I'm familiar with.
Effectively, there's nonlinear deformers. There is a skin cluster type system. and I say tight because it's like skin clusters, but it's not, because you can paint weight for a joint movement based off of how it's rotating or how it's translating. So if it rotates on the negative axis on one axis, it has this weight. If it rotates this way, it has a different set of weights.
That's crazy. And then, so I'm guessing there's probably like a bunch of custom deformers that are running in Unreal to match that.
No, it's all through their deformer. Their one node is all it is. So they have a list of deformers when you're building it out in their system, and then that just saves out a data file that you read inside of Maya or inside of Unreal.
That's nuts. Yeah, I have to check this out some more, because it's like they even have like rendering stuff. That's crazy. Yeah, so have you got to mess with it much, or?
Oh, dude, I played around with it over 3 years ago, because it was before I started at Sony. Like, it's been in development for quite a while.
Oh, wow.
There is a version coming out. I should have my hands on it soon. That's actually running natively inside of Maya, to where I can actually build the deformers inside of their little UI in Maya, and then work with it there or export it out to Unreal.
That's really cool.
It's fun. It's fast. I do remember I was working on a project with them, helping them get some Maya stuff set up, and we kept getting notes from the client going, "This rig is so slow." And I'm like, "It's running at like 7 milliseconds on my machine." And I'm like, "What's it running on yours?" He's like, "It's running at like 7 seconds on my machine." And I'm like, "What the hell are you running?" And he gave me the specs, and I was like, "Oh yeah, the tool's multi-threaded, and I happen to be using a Threadripper at the time with 64 cores, so 128 threads." I was like, that would probably explain it. And I loaded it up on my laptop, and I was like getting closer to the performance he was. I was like, yeah, I'll see what I can do to tweak the stuff a bit for you.
That's crazy. Man, are you spending a lot of time in Unreal these days, or have you gotten to mess around with like Control Rig and all those things?
So I do like a little testing on my own. I've been teaching on and off for like almost as long as we've known each other.
Yeah.
I started off teaching back at CG Society back in those days. And shortly after we started working together, I started teaching with 3D Dojo, which ended up leading me to teaching with University of Nebraska. And actually I'm teaching starting in 2 months, 6 weeks. Yeah, 6 weeks for Florida State now.
That's crazy. What do you teach with Florida State?
I'm teaching just a basic rigging course for them as part of their core animation setup. So, but their curriculum that I'm using and the curriculum at UNL that I set up was all basically the same, where it's like we walk through the character stuff, but we always end up going into Unreal at the end, because so much stuff that they're wanting to teach is going into Unreal and how to deal with it there. So I do eventually teach them how to like set up. I don't go crazy control rigs like you see from like coming out of Epic, where you're doing full on IKFK switching and all that type of stuff. And
all the stuff.
I'm showing that, that stuff. I'm like, man, you have more patience than I do to try to animate in Unreal. I haven't tried it yet, but it's not something I'm like super keen to dive into, because it's another package to learn then.
Oh, trust me, dude.
Setting up control rig, I love it. I set up I teach them how to drive the twist joint system, set up secondaries and helper systems, stuff like that.
That's cool. Yeah, it's when I think about it, it's like, there's certain things that you have to go. I don't know. I think back to like a Maya package or DCC, whatever you want to call it. It's like do like really good corrective authoring and things like that, and you're gonna want your puppet rig in there to do that with.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's badass that it's in Unreal. I know there's some of that stuff in there as well, like correctives and all those types of systems. But I don't know. Yeah, it just doesn't seem like it's there yet to fully be inside Unreal.
5.4 has some new stuff in it. I know there's some new deformation stuff coming in soon to do. I think they're working on stuff to do correctives inside the engine a bit more, where you can do a little bit of sculpting or point pulling around to get it there. So
yeah. So man, like, how do you have time? So let me drive back this question a little bit. So like, you're the rigging supervisor for Sony. I remember I was reading an article that you wrote with Rigging Dojo where like you were talking about like, hey, my whole day is looking at assets, approving assets, going to meetings, putting out fires, all these different things. And then you have asset production, some stuff that you're working on, like on the box yourself, on top of that, plus all the communications. I'm guessing like your day is probably like 12 hours or like 10 hours. Like, what's it?
Well, like I said, I'm in Kansas now, so I'm in Central Time. I'm in a very weird situation now because I'm here in the Central Time Zone. Sony's got offices in Montreal, Vancouver, and LA. So Montreal's an hour ahead of me. Vancouver and LA are 2 hours behind me. Mm-hmm. For the most part, I don't actually start my day till the LA team and Vancouver team kick in at 11 a.m. my time. So I'm working normally 11 to 8. So I'm matching their hours.
Okay.
So I've got all that time in the morning to do whatever I need to get done, whether it's, doing an ML AI course that I'm getting ready to start in a couple of weeks to teach myself, or teaching a class, or, running errands, or just doing whatever to screw around in Unreal and learn something there. So after that, it's not that bad. It's just keeping track of time and everything.
Plus family, kids, all this
stuff.
Plus
family, plus 2 dogs, a cat. Yep.
You have that crazy little Chihuahua,
campaign
right?
that I run. What?
Well, what is it that you run?
I run a D&D campaign here too.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like one of my shelves behind me is like, I've actually got 2 shelves that are completely full of books.
So what's that involve, running that?
I run it for a friend of mine and his family, and just go over to their house on Sundays, usually play for about 4 or 5 hours. I'm the DM in the group, so it's like I'm coming up with the world that they're playing in and just the encounters and the stories that they're being driven by.
That's awesome.
And hopefully nobody does something to completely destroy my ideas that I had for it, which has happened numerous times.
Yeah. Is your wife into this stuff too, or is it just kind of like, hey, you go do this?
No, it's just, I'm going to go see him. I'll see you in a couple hours. She's like, okay. She's studying. She's got her own education stuff she's doing right now. So Sundays, she's head down into her books anyways. My kids are sitting around on their Xbox playing Fortnite constantly. Or worse, they're on Roblox playing. I'm trying to think what they're playing right now. One of them is some fashion designer game, and the other one is playing, what is it? I keep wanting to call it Fruit Ninja, but it's not Fruit Ninja. It's some Roblox game where you eat a fruit and you gain superpowers from the fruit. So
that sounds like
crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with that, man. Yeah, so you're in Kansas. So I'm in Idaho, and people are always like, Idaho, where the hell is that? Is that? They probably think it's where Kansas is, but. So what's it like living in Kansas, man? So when's tornado season? Is that all year, or is it just a certain time?
Not really. It's normally it's March, April through October. It's pretty much running roughly the same time as hurricane season.
Okay.
But we do get tornadoes outside of that area. A vast chunk of them are usually in the springtime more than any other time, though.
So before I hit record, you started telling me a story about having a Sony meeting in your bunker safe room. Can you go?
Yeah, it was funny. The project that I can't name, we were doing rounds, and it's right in the middle of rounds, my phone goes off with tornado warning, and so it's my kids came down, my wife came down, I grabbed my laptop and a charger and went over to our little bunker room. I'm sitting there on a plastic tote because my wife took one of the chairs that we have in there. My son took the other chair, and my daughter was sitting on the floor. So I'm stuck sitting on a tote, and I'm not kidding. I was sitting like this because of how high the tabletop is in there. doing rounds for 2 hours because of this tornado warning that was going on.
2 hours.
It was what? Yeah, it was. God, I think it was about 12 miles away from us. But it was like we had a bad storm going on in the area at the time, and it's like one tornado warning finished, another one kicked up like just before it. So it's like we just stayed down there for a while till it all cleared out.
How big's that room?
But it was funny. Almost as big as my office.
Is it? Does it? I'm guessing no windows.
Yeah, no windows. 2 solid concrete walls, and then like a shared wall to my office and a shared wall to the downstairs living room. We're in the basement right now. So this is my little egress window outside,
right?
Which I hear frogs chirping in. Yeah, I'll be down here working at night. I'll hear this like frog out there croaking, and I'm like, it will scare the crap out of me because it's totally dead silent. Yeah, it's all quiet, and then all of a sudden you just hear the noises, and it's like, what is that? Or even better is like, I haven't seen it this year yet, but I'll get a shadow moving on the window, and a frog. We get little frogs and we get some big frogs out here, but there'll be a little frog that's like crawling across the window, casting a shadow down here. I'm like, what the hell is that?
It's like projected, so it's bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, that's usually probably next month in October when that happens.
While you're working on the eye for, what was it, for the
Guardians of the
Galaxy, you like work on this crazy thing, and there's like weird shadows moving around.
Yep. Yeah.
It's funny, man.
Crazy times.
Yeah, so when I first met Todd, he was playing rugby at the time, right? I think you're kind of coming out of that stage, crushing other human skulls with your freaking arms and like.
Yeah, it was when I moved back from London down to Florida, and yeah, I had been playing rugby. I played touch rugby on the weekends, but I also played contact on a club over there that was. I'll say it, and people are going to laugh on it. It was the London Japanese.
Okay.
London Japanese Rugby Football Club. And I actually still have my uniform upstairs. But yeah, it was started by the Japanese ambassador to London or to the UK in, I think it was the 80s or the 70s. But, I'm playing on this club, and it's like, myself, and there's like 5 British guys, 6 British guys maybe. There was a French guy that played, but the rest is all Japanese that just happened to be living in London that joined the club. And I'm like, it was an interesting mix of teams or mix of cultures and everything. It was fun to play. So,
how'd you get into that? Were you like, did they come to you, or were you seeking that out?
No, I've always been a big rugby fan. I've absolutely always loved the sport. I thought it's amazing to watch. The fact that you don't actually wear pads, but if you are wearing a padded system, it's like a foam pad that's like a half-inch thick, if that, and it's like maybe over the shoulders and the spine and the kidneys and the hips, and that's about it usually. But no, I was playing touch with 2 of the Brits that were in the club, and they were like, hey, you should come play with us sometime. So it's like I went up to practices and stuff, and they were like, do you want to join? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm like, I'm open to just weekend contacts, sure. And that's where we went from. So they do what's crazy, I never got to go. I really wanted to go, but I never got a chance to. They are connected with this group in Poland, and I can't remember where in Poland it is, but this guy's got like 100 or 200 acre farm out in the middle of nowhere in Poland, and he has like 2 rugby pitches set up on it.
That's nuts.
And he's got a big, huge barn, and every year they do like a week-long festival there, and it's like them and tons of like, little local clubs from all over Europe go there and play for a week.
I just imagine like a bunch of giant dudes like knocking down beers and smashing each other on the field.
Yep. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. The only major injury, I only got to play in a couple games because of work schedules, but I got stuck in a ruck once and somehow blew out blood vessels on one half of my face.
Oh, geez.
So it's like, literally, you could hold a sheet of paper up right down my center of my face. And it's like, this side of my face was like red, like I'd gotten a sunburn for a couple days.
Like Close Encounters.
This eye was completely red because I blew blood vessels all over it, and I had a little bit of red right there. But yeah, everybody I was working with at the time at Cinesite was like, dude, you look like you're from 28 Days Later. So it looked like I had rage eye going on.
Yeah, like that's full of red on your eye. Yeah. Yep. 20. I think there's a new one coming out, a new 28.
Yeah, 28 years or something.
Uh-huh.
I remember seeing some stuff on it. I'm looking forward to it, actually.
Yeah, those are cool.
Finally get to see a good movie again.
Yeah. What have you enjoyed like recently in the theater? Is there anything Deadpool?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
The last two movies I've been to in the theater, I walked out of going, one of them was like, I'm not going to name names because I don't want to offend anybody that worked on visual effects on both films. Looked amazing. I'll say that. It was just, the story was disappointing. One, I was like it was slow getting going, which that's not an issue for me, really. The first 2/3 of the film was really good. And the last act to me just was like, what the hell? And it just went like so far off in a direction that just felt odd to the movie. And this movie's gotten great reviews. Mind you, this is what's funny. I went in expecting, this is the first film I've gone to go see in so long where I went in expecting something good. And I was like so disappointed.
Oh man. Now I'm dying to know what it is.
I'll tell you offline.
Okay.
Most of the time I go to see movies, I expect absolutely nothing. So that way I always enjoy it. The other film was a remake of something that you and I grew up on.
Okay.
And again, hated it. Absolutely hated it.
Yeah.
And it's nothing with the acting. It was just, the story was just the last film I really enjoyed, God, I'm trying to think what the last one I actually really got to sit through and watch. Well, everybody's number one right now, Deadpool and Wolverine.
Right. I think I haven't seen it yet.
I loved it.
I haven't seen it. My wife and I want to go check it out.
I love Deadpool anyways, so it's like I was going to go see it. But yeah, that was definitely a great film to watch. A lot of fun, a lot of stupid Easter eggs in it. Borderlands just hit on demand today, and I had already pre-ordered it because my son wanted to see it, and we started watching it. I don't see why it was getting such crap reviews, because I'm like, going in watching it as just a film, not
what is
I don't
Borderlands?
Get a game that much with kids. It's a video game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not a big gamer because I don't get a game because my kids steal the Xbox all the time.
Right.
And so I don't know the whole story for Borderlands, but just watching it, I was like, it's fun. I've sat through it in the theater. I only got to watch about half hour of it this morning before I'd take him to school. So, but yeah, it was good. Outside of that, God, I can't remember. I see movies all the time too. I just can't remember what the last really good one other than Deadpool was.
So I watched this movie recently. I think it's been out for a few years. It was is this that director Guy Ritchie, right? Who did like Snatch and all that stuff. He did what's the one? Knights of the Round Table type stuff. Well, I forgot what it was called.
Well, he did King Arthur. Are you thinking
King Arthur?
Yeah.
I think it was that one. Yeah. And I remember just like, it was kind of like a silly action movie, but like the visual effects were pretty awesome, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, my taste in movies are all over the place because one of my guilty pleasures, my wife loves it too. I can't believe I'm going to admit this to you and everybody, is Knight's Tale. The whole Heath Ledger one.
Yeah, man.
It's so cheesy and just stupid, but it's like, it's just something about it that's just fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's it. It's fun, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
You watch it, like, oh yeah, you're in a good mood. And
yeah, it's just stupid. I mean, it's something to enjoy. I think that's why I was enjoying Borderlands, because I'm like, it's mindless. I don't have to think too much. I'm like, it's got some decent action to it. It's got cheesy, corny dialogue at times. So, and frankly, I didn't think I would like it as much as I did. But Claptrap, which is this like robot character that follows him around, It's voiced by Jack Black, and honestly, I love the way they're doing it in it, and it's hilarious for that. So I'll probably get flamed for saying that, but I was enjoying it.
That's funny, man. What are your thoughts on like AI and all that stuff? I would kind of ask everybody about that stuff on the show because it's like a hot topic and some crazy stuff's coming out of it, and
like I said a minute ago, I'm actually starting a course in AI and machine learning, like how to build out the systems and everything here in a couple of weeks. I think everybody that's in VFX and or games should get some exposure to it so they understand how to work with it. Now, do I think generative AI has a place in what we do? No, because of copyrights and everything. And you have no idea what training data was used for that type of stuff. Flip side of that, machine learning, where I'm teaching the system to do something. I'm totally for that. I mean, every studio, Weta's face rig system is partially machine learning based for figuring out how to trigger the muscles and when to trigger the muscles for the faces for their new curve system. I think DD's going that direction with their face tracking system as well. So, I think machine learning definitely has a place. Generative AI has no place for me, really. I mean, I've used Midjourney and some of those and just played around with stupid image generation. And I'm like,
right.
It was a decent job, but I'm like, maybe as a reference point to start something on my own, but that's it.
Yeah, I had a friend on last week, Brent LeBlanc, and he was putting these little short films together just for fun. And he had this example of there was a shot of a woman's eye opening, and like it was pretty cool. Like he didn't tell me exactly how he went into making that. I would love to hear more about it, but it just showed like the eyelid opening like really up close. It was like all the little wrinkles on the eyelid and then kind of collapsing and like all that stuff. He was able to get from it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I know. There's an artist in LA named Minnie Savaris. I think I pronounced that right. And he just released I didn't watch the whole thing. I just watched a little teaser part of it. A fully AI generated one, like AI music, everything. And what I saw looks pretty good. So I'm getting more and more impressed with it. I mean, the quality of the stuff out there is crazy at times.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I have a buddy who's doing some like little kids videos. I think he's building a YouTube channel where it's like, and like the music, everything like you said, he's kind of generating through different generative AI systems. But
the one that caught me was, God, what was it, about 2 or 3 weeks ago? Somebody posted that image. I don't even remember what system it was from, but they put it up on LinkedIn of this woman doing a TED Talk. And I'm like, oh God, it looks absolutely amazing. Like I thought it was a photo at first. And it wasn't until somebody else pointed out, look at the font on the microphone. And it's completely illegible font.
Like jarbled.
I mean, it's like Klingon symbols almost. That's how bad the font was on it. And then the TED Talk logo has a specific theme to it. And it's like, if you Google it, it never existed. That was only way you could. That was one of the only ways you could really figure out that this thing was completely AI generated.
That's crazy.
Like it was so good. Like I was zooming in on the picture of her face, like trying to find detail, there, and I'm like, it looked like a photo.
Yeah, that's wild. A friend of mine sent me a video of he's like, oh, check out this video about Elon Musk saying, I forgot what he was talking about. And then 10 minutes later, he's like, oh, it was fake. Never mind.
Dude, that's the thing about generative AI that scares me is just like how good it's getting and how easy it is to fake that type of stuff.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm kind of skeptical about a lot of stuff that like these little things that pop up in like a reel or whatever it is when you're just kind of browsing through things. Talking about stuff like that, like, is there anything else that you're nerding out on the side, like aside from your gaming stuff and is there anything you're into that you want to talk about?
What do you see everything behind me there? I actually don't have my hat on for once. I'm a child of the 80s. I grew up watching Star Wars, the original Star Wars in the theaters, on G.I. Joe, on Gen 1 Transformers. I'm a massive G.I. Joe fan.
Well, yeah, you have a Cobra tattoo on your cap, right?
Yeah, I've got the Cobra tattoo. Every hat I have upstairs actually has a Cobra morale patch on it. So, but like, my desk is littered with figures all over the place.
Oh, nice, man.
I actually use them for anatomy and movement references for my artists at times.
Are you serious? Because all the little balls.
I'll grab it, I'll start bending around, going, see, this is how this moves, and this type of stuff. And it's specific, like, I'll use it for reference because it's like I'll pose an arm and go, I want to make sure this area looks good in this type of pose. They're like, oh, okay. But every one of those boxes is this new 6-inch figures that Hasbro's been doing for a couple of years now. And there's
that's cool.
Boxes and boxes out there in my storage room that have them too. So
your wife's like, where's all our money going towards?
Dude, oh my God, yeah. A package will show up and she's like, what's that? I was like, I pre-ordered something. And she's like, I thought you weren't ordering anymore. And I'm like, I pre-ordered these like 6 months ago. Like, I had some stuff show up the other day and she's like, I thought you weren't ordering anything for a while. And I'm like, I pre-ordered these things 6 months ago. They weren't supposed to be out till next month, but they came out early.
Dude, that's a great tactic. I think I'm going to use that from now on. Like,
yeah.
I thought you said you're not going to buy any more of this stuff. Like, oh, I ordered that like 8 months ago.
Yeah. I mean, it works. So, no, I mean, hilarious. With the family and two kids, I mean, I've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. So it's like, they take up so much money because they're like, hey, we need to go do this. We go to a trampoline park a lot. We've got
those are awesome.
It's kind of like Chuck E. Cheese. Like, they do pizza and stuff there too, but there's like a maze and climb house structure that they go play in, and then there's all sorts of like ticket machines for winning tickets to go buy a 4-foot tall like creeper or Enderman from Minecraft. My
nice.
son actually got those. So
that's crazy.
You
did what it took to get those, huh? Like, it must have taken a lot of time.
It is a 4-foot tall Enderman. No, it was crazy. That was from one visit, and we were there 30 minutes. Like, all the tickets were in 30 minutes.
That's crazy. So did you win like one of those machines where it's like?
That's what basically happened. It was so funny. We walked in. I took the card with the tickets on because I go win the tickets for him while they go play. And he immediately goes and starts playing. And I walk by this one machine that's got like, they do these hoops of tickets that are like that big.
Yeah, it's like the drug dealer roll of cash.
Yeah, and it's like a claw machine. I dropped down, picked up two rolls that were, I think, 900 tickets each.
That's crazy.
And I was just like, okay, that's just dumb luck. I mean, very first time I did it, got that. Like, that's dumb luck. I go turn those in. I go play some other stuff. He comes down from playing and goes by the stupid little hammer thing. And if you hit the perfect score, you get 1,000 tickets. And he walked by, and I'm not kidding, just goes, boom. And I was like, I couldn't believe he actually did that. We wait. It took, I'm not kidding you, like 10 minutes for all these tickets to come out of the machine.
Oh, just they were coming out like the little stream?
They just come out in a stream, like the old style skee ball tickets. So that's like just pouring those things out. We get those. We go turn them in. We go play some other games for a bit. And I'm like, I'm feeling really stupid at this point. I was like, okay, I'll do the stupid hammer thing. And I go tap, boom, 1,000. And I'm like, and he's laughing because he did not expect it. I didn't expect it. The funniest part about it was the machine actually ran out of tickets partway through. So we had to wait for somebody to come fill it back up to finish it all off. But yeah, he was happy. He had been wanting to get one of the big toys like that there. So I was like, yeah, get it.
That's killer.
So we had to go pick my wife and daughter up from where they were at. And we show up and it's like me driving, my son in the car seat, in the booster seat behind me. And this Enderman sitting in the middle, strapped into the seat too.
That's hilarious, man. Yeah, I don't have such luck like that ever. But
yeah, I never do. So
that's pretty badass.
yeah, it was fun.
Cool.
It was a fun day.
That is, man. Sweet, dude. Well, thanks for coming on the show, man. It's been awesome.
Anytime.
And, yeah, it's so cool to hear about all that different stuff, all the different projects and different stuff you're working with, man. It's really cool.
Yeah, and hit Brad up, man. Get Rich and Eric on from Ozone and get Brad on. Do like a group call with them, man. I'd love to see that one because Rich doesn't talk enough about what it's doing, and the public not enough of the public know about it yet.
Yeah. So. Yeah, no, the Ozone stuff looks badass. That's a great idea. Awesome. Well, thanks, Todd.
Yeah.